My husband's sister broke my $300 wedding cake topper and laughed about it, then went on a podcast saying I accused her of breaking it on purpose, and now she's trying to make a post about how I stole her wedding venue even though she literally texted us permission to use the credit. I, 29F, got married 3 months ago to my husband Lennox, 32M. The wedding was small but nice. We had been planning it for about 8 months. Lennox has one sister named Monica, 36F. She lives in the same city as us. Monica has always been the type of person who needs to be the center of attention in every room she walks into. When we announced our engagement at a family dinner, she spent the entire evening talking about her own upcoming promotion at work. She pulled out her laptop at the table and made everyone look at her presentation slides. Lennox's parents just smiled and nodded. They have been doing that with her for years. The first real problem started when we picked our wedding venue. Back in 2019, Monica got engaged to someone named Tyler. They broke up after 6 months. But before the breakup, Monica had booked a venue for their wedding. It was a nice place called the Cedar House. It had floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out at the water. Monica paid a $5,000 deposit. When the engagement ended, the venue offered her a credit instead of a refund. The credit was good for 3 years. Monica told us about this credit when we were looking for venues. She said we could use it if we wanted. Lennox asked her multiple times if she was sure. She said yes every single time. She said the credit would expire anyway and she had no plans to use it. She even sent Lennox a text message saying he should take it and not feel bad about it. We used the credit. We also paid an additional $7,000 because our guest list was bigger than what the original deposit covered. The venue was perfect for us. We changed everything about the setup. Monica had planned a fall theme with burgundy and gold colors. We did a spring theme with white and pale blue. Nothing about our wedding looked like what she had planned. The problem started about 2 months before the wedding. Monica began making comments. She would see our decoration samples and say things like "that's interesting" or "I had thought about doing something similar." Lennox told her to stop. She said she was just trying to be helpful. The real issue happened the night before the wedding. We were staying at Lennox's parents' house. It's a big house with 5 bedrooms. Lennox had gone to pick up his brother from the airport. I was at the house with Monica and Lennox's mother Julia, 64F. I had brought my wedding cake topper to the house because the bakery was delivering the cake directly to the venue the next morning. The topper was custom made. It was 2 small ceramic figures that looked like me and Lennox. I had ordered it from an artist on Etsy 6 months earlier. It cost $350. The figures were hand-painted. The artist had matched Lennox's suit color and my dress color exactly. I left the topper in its box on the dining room table. I went upstairs to take a shower. When I came back down about 40 minutes later, the box was open. The topper was on the table. One of the figures was snapped in half. The head was completely separated from the body. Monica was sitting at the table. She was holding the broken piece. She looked up at me and started laughing. She said she was just looking at it and it slipped. She said these things are so fragile anyway. She said it wasn't a big deal because the cake would still taste the same. I asked her why she opened the box. She said she wanted to see what it looked like. I asked her why she took it out of the protective foam. She shrugged. She said she didn't think it would break so easily. Julia came into the room. She saw the broken topper. She looked at Monica and asked what happened. Monica said it was an accident. Julia asked why Monica had even touched it. Monica said she was just curious. I took the broken pieces and went to the kitchen. I tried to see if I could glue it back together. The break was clean but the piece was so small that glue wouldn't hold. I called the artist. She said she didn't have another one ready and couldn't make one by tomorrow. I called 3 local bakeries to see if they had any toppers available. Nothing matched what we wanted. Monica came into the kitchen. She said I was overreacting. She said no one even looks at the cake topper. She said people would be too busy eating and dancing. She said I should just put flowers on top of the cake instead. I didn't respond. I went back upstairs. Lennox came home about an hour later. Julia told him what happened. He went to Monica's room and I could hear him yelling. Monica yelled back that it was an accident and he needed to calm down. He told her she had no business touching something that didn't belong to her. She said he was being dramatic. The next morning at the wedding, we had no cake topper. The baker tried to arrange some fresh flowers on top but it looked wrong. The cake had been designed with a flat platform at the top specifically for the topper. With just flowers, there was a visible gap. Every time I walked past the cake table, I could see that empty space. Monica spent the entire reception taking photos. She posed in front of the windows. She stood at the head table even though she was seated at a different table. She posted about 15 photos on Instagram during the reception. Her captions talked about how beautiful the venue was. One of them said something about how special this place had always been to her. After the wedding, we went on our honeymoon for 2 weeks. When we got back, things got worse. Monica had started posting more photos from the wedding. But she had also started posting old photos from 2019 when she and Tyler were engaged. She posted a photo of herself at the Cedar House from their engagement photo shoot. The caption said something about how she had discovered this venue and how it held so many memories for her. Then she posted a screenshot of her original venue contract from 2019. She blocked out the price but left visible the date and the venue name. The caption talked about how hard it is when someone takes something that was meant to be yours. Lennox called her. She didn't answer. He sent her a text message asking what she was doing. She replied that she was just sharing her story. He said she was trying to make it look like we stole her wedding. She said that people could interpret her posts however they wanted. Over the next week, Monica posted more. She found old Pinterest boards from 2019 where she had saved venue ideas. She screenshotted those and posted them with captions about original visions and revised dreams. She posted a photo of herself holding her old venue contract and looking sad. Lennox's aunt Karen called Julia. Karen said she had seen Monica's posts and was confused about what happened. Julia explained that Monica had given us permission to use the credit. Karen said that's not what it looked like from Monica's posts. Julia said she didn't know what to tell her because Monica was doing this on purpose. More family members started calling. Lennox's cousin Beth sent me a direct message asking if I had pressured Monica into giving us the venue. I explained the whole situation. Beth said she believed me but that other people were getting a different story from Monica's posts. Monica then posted a long written post. She said she was healing from a difficult time in her life. She said certain people had taken advantage of her generosity. She said she had tried to be supportive but it hurt to see her venue used by someone else. She said she hoped those people were happy with what they took. The post got about 60 comments from her friends. Most of them said things like "stay strong" or "you deserve better." A few people asked what happened. Monica replied to those comments saying she didn't want to name names but that family could be complicated. Lennox sent her another message. He said she needed to stop posting about this or he would post the text message where she gave us permission to use the credit. Monica replied that he was threatening her. She said his message was proof of how he had been treating her. She said she was documenting everything. Julia and Lennox's father Blake, 66M, invited Monica over for dinner. They asked her to explain what she was trying to accomplish with her posts. Monica said she wasn't trying to accomplish anything. She said she was just processing her feelings. Julia said it looked like she was trying to turn the family against us. Monica said that was their interpretation and she couldn't control how people read her words. Blake asked her directly if she regretted giving us the venue credit. Monica said she regretted a lot of things. Blake asked her to clarify. Monica said she regretted being so trusting. Julia asked what that meant. Monica said it meant she had learned that family doesn't always have your back. Lennox stopped calling Monica. He blocked her on social media. I did the same. Julia told us that Monica had started telling extended family members that we blocked her because we couldn't handle the truth. 2 weeks after that dinner, Monica posted that she was writing a personal essay about her experience. She said the essay would be published on a medium-sized blog that focuses on family relationships and personal growth. She said she hoped her story would help other people who had experienced similar situations. The essay never appeared. But Monica kept posting about how she was working on it. She posted photos of herself at coffee shops with her laptop open. She posted screenshots of what looked like document pages but with all the text blurred out. Her captions talked about the writing process and healing through storytelling. Lennox's brother Luke, 28M, called us. He said Monica had sent him a draft of her essay and asked for feedback. He said the essay named Lennox and me directly. He said it described the broken cake topper as a metaphor for broken trust. He said Monica wrote that she felt erased from her own venue. Luke said he told Monica the essay was inappropriate and that she was rewriting history. Monica told Luke that he had been brainwashed by Lennox. We talked to a lawyer. The lawyer said Monica could potentially publish an essay about her feelings as long as she didn't defame us. The lawyer said the text message where Monica gave us permission would protect us if she tried to claim we stole from her. The lawyer also said the broken cake topper could be considered property damage but that it probably wasn't worth pursuing legally given the family situation. Julia called Monica and told her that if she published anything using our real names, there would be consequences. Monica asked what kind of consequences. Julia said she would stop pretending that Monica's behavior was acceptable. Monica hung up on her. That's where things are right now. Monica is still posting vague things on social media. She hasn't published the essay yet. Lennox barely speaks to her. When we see her at family events, she acts like nothing is wrong. She smiles and waves. She asks how we're doing. Then she goes home and posts something cryptic about people who pretend everything is fine. I don't know what to do. Part of me wants to just ignore her and hope she gets bored. Part of me wants to post the text message where she gave us permission and end this whole thing. Lennox says we should just cut her off completely. Julia says we should wait and see if Monica calms down on her own. I'm writing this because I need to know if I'm wrong for being upset. Monica keeps saying everything was an accident and that she's just expressing her feelings. But it feels like she's trying to rewrite what actually happened. Update 1 I posted about 6 weeks ago about my sister-in-law Monica breaking my wedding cake topper and then acting like we stole her venue. A lot has happened since then. About a week after I made my original post, Monica announced something new on Instagram. She said she had been invited to speak on a podcast about family dynamics and wedding planning. She posted the podcast name and episode title. The podcast was called Unpacking Family Drama. The episode was titled When Your Wedding Becomes Someone Else's Story. The podcast came out 3 days later. Lennox's friend Ryan sent us the link. Ryan said we needed to listen to it immediately. I listened to the entire 45-minute episode. Monica was the only guest. The host asked her to share her story. Monica started by saying she had been engaged several years ago. She said she spent months planning her dream wedding. She said she found the perfect venue and put down a large deposit. Then her engagement ended. So far this was all true. But then Monica said that after her breakup, her family pressured her to let her younger brother use the venue. She said she was in a vulnerable place and felt like she couldn't say no. She said she watched her brother and his wife plan a wedding that looked exactly like what she had envisioned. She said on the actual wedding day, she felt like she was attending her own wedding but as a guest. None of this was true. We changed everything about the venue setup. Our wedding looked nothing like what she had planned. And she had offered us the venue credit without anyone asking. The host asked Monica how this affected her. Monica said it had been traumatic. She said she felt erased. She said she tried to be happy for her brother but it was too painful. She said things got worse when she accidentally broke a wedding decoration and her brother's wife overreacted. Monica described the cake topper incident completely differently. She said I had left it out on a table and asked her to look at it. She said when she picked it up to examine it, it slipped from her hands. She said I became hostile immediately. She said I accused her of breaking it on purpose. She said the whole family turned against her because of my accusations. The host was very sympathetic. She told Monica it sounded like she had been put in an impossible situation. Monica agreed. She said she was now in a place where she had to protect herself from toxic family members. The host asked if Monica had tried to communicate her feelings. Monica said she had tried but that some people don't want to hear the truth. The podcast ended with the host thanking Monica for sharing her story. The host said she hoped Monica was taking care of herself. Monica said she was working on healing and setting boundaries. Lennox listened to the podcast after I did. He threw his phone across the room. He called Julia and told her to listen to it. Julia called back an hour later. She said she couldn't believe Monica would lie so publicly. Luke also listened to the podcast. He called Monica and told her she needed to contact the podcast and ask them to take it down. Monica said she wasn't going to do that. Luke said everything she said was a lie. Monica said it was her truth. Luke asked what that meant. Monica said it meant that this was her experience and she had a right to share it. The podcast had about 1,200 reviews on Apple Podcasts. After Monica's episode came out, I checked the comments on the podcast's Instagram page. About 20 people had commented on the post about Monica's episode. Most of them were supportive. They said things like good for you for speaking your truth or family can be so toxic. One person said they had been in a similar situation and it was brave of Monica to share. Julia tried calling Monica again. Monica didn't answer. Julia sent her a text message saying they needed to talk about the podcast. Monica replied that she had nothing to discuss. Julia said Monica had misrepresented what happened. Monica said Julia was taking sides. Julia said there were no sides because Monica had made everything up. Monica didn't respond. About 2 weeks after the podcast came out, Monica posted on Instagram that she had been contacted by someone about turning her story into a short film. She posted a photo of herself holding papers. The caption said she never imagined her experience would resonate with so many people. She said this was just the beginning of her healing journey. Lennox tried to figure out if the short film thing was real. He looked up the name Monica had tagged in her post. It was a guy named Brett who had an Instagram account with about 400 followers. His bio said he was a filmmaker and screenwriter. His posts were mostly photos from what looked like student film projects. Brett had replied to Monica's tag with a comment saying he was excited to work with her. Lennox clicked on Brett's profile and went through his posts. Brett had recently posted about looking for real-life stories to adapt into short films. He said he wanted to focus on family conflict and emotional truth. Monica posted more photos over the next week. She posted a photo of herself at a coffee shop with Brett. The caption said they were working on the script. She posted a photo of a notebook with handwritten notes. The caption said something about bringing her story to life. Julia called Brett directly. She found his phone number on his website. She told him that Monica's story wasn't accurate and that he should verify the facts before making anything. Brett said he appreciated the concern but that he was telling Monica's perspective. Julia said Monica's perspective was based on lies. Brett said he wasn't interested in taking sides in a family dispute. Julia said this wasn't about sides. Brett said he had to go and ended the call. Monica then announced on Instagram that they had scheduled a table read for the script. She said it would be at a local community theater space. She said there would be a small audience of Brett's film school classmates and anyone else who wanted to attend. She posted a date and time. She said she hoped this would help others feel less alone in their experiences. Lennox and I decided we needed to do something. We talked about going to the table read. I said maybe if we showed up, Monica would realize how far she had taken this. Lennox said she would probably just use it as proof that we were harassing her. We talked to Blake and Julia. Blake said he wanted to go to the table read. Julia said she would go too. Luke said he would also be there. We all agreed we wouldn't cause a scene but that Monica needed to see we weren't going to let her get away with this. The table read was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon. The day before, Monica posted a reminder about the event. She said she was nervous but excited. She said this was an important step in her healing process. Saturday came. We all met at the community theater. It was a small black box theater with about 50 folding chairs set up. There were maybe 20 people there when we arrived. Most of them looked like they were in their early 20s. They were probably Brett's classmates. Monica arrived about 10 minutes after us. She saw us immediately. Her face went completely white. She walked over to where Brett was standing near the stage. She said something to him and pointed at us. Brett looked over and shrugged. The table read started. Brett introduced the project. He said it was based on a true story about family betrayal and stolen dreams. He said they were in early development and this was a rough draft. 4 actors sat at a table on the stage with scripts. 1 actor played Monica's character. Another played Lennox's character. Another played my character. The 4th played Julia. The script was about 30 pages. It started with Monica's character talking about her broken engagement. She talked about finding her dream venue. Then it jumped to a family dinner where Lennox's character announced his engagement. In the script, Lennox's character immediately said he wanted to use Monica's venue. Monica's character said she wasn't sure. The mother character, playing Julia, told Monica's character that she needed to be supportive of her brother. This didn't happen. Lennox asked Monica about the venue weeks after we got engaged. And Monica offered it before Lennox even brought it up. The script continued with Monica's character reluctantly agreeing to give up the venue. Then there was a scene of Monica's character driving past the venue and crying. Then a scene where Monica's character attended the wedding and watched everything happen. The script included a scene where my character snapped at Monica's character for accidentally touching something. The final scene had Monica's character sitting alone in her apartment. She talked about how she had to cut off her family for her own mental health. She said healing meant walking away from people who couldn't acknowledge their actions. The script ended there. After the reading finished, Brett asked the audience for feedback. A few of Brett's classmates raised their hands and talked about the emotional arc of Monica's character. They said it was powerful. One person said the mother character needed more development. Another person said the wedding scene could be longer. Then Blake stood up. He said he had some feedback. Brett looked confused. Blake said he was Monica's father. He said the script was based on false information. He said Monica had volunteered to give us the venue credit and no one had pressured her. Brett said this was supposed to be a safe space for creative work. Blake said he understood that, but that Monica was defaming her family. Monica stood up from her seat. She said we needed to leave. She said we were disrupting her process. Julia stood up and said Monica needed to stop lying. Monica said we were proving her point about toxic family members. Brett asked us to leave. He said this wasn't the appropriate venue for a family argument. Lennox said we would leave but that Monica needed to know she couldn't keep lying about us. Monica started crying. Brett put his arm around her shoulders. We left. Outside the theater, Julia kept saying she couldn't believe Monica had taken it this far. Luke said he didn't know what else we could do. Blake said maybe we needed to just cut Monica off completely and let her live in her fantasy world. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, Monica has posted multiple times about how her family showed up to intimidate her. She said we tried to silence her. She said she was more determined than ever to tell her story. She posted that Brett decided not to move forward with the film project because of family interference. She said she was looking for other filmmakers who would be interested. We haven't spoken to Monica since the table read. Julia tried calling her once but Monica rejected the call. Monica blocked Blake on Instagram. She had already blocked Lennox and me weeks ago. I don't know where this ends. Monica seems fully committed to this false version of events. Every time we try to correct the record, she uses it as evidence that we're trying to control her narrative. Update 2 I'm back with another update and things have gotten worse before getting slightly better. After the failed table read and Brett dropping the film project, Monica went quiet on social media for about 2 weeks. We thought maybe she had finally realized how out of control things had gotten. We were wrong. Monica resurfaced with a new announcement. She said she had been approached by a small independent publisher about turning her story into a book. She posted a photo of herself with a laptop at a library. The caption talked about finally having a platform to share her full truth. Lennox immediately tried to find out if this was real. He searched for the publisher name Monica had mentioned. It was called Healing Voices Press. Their website looked professional but when he dug deeper, he found out it was a self-publishing company that would publish basically anything as long as you paid them. Monica posted updates about her book progress over the next few weeks. She posted photos of what she claimed were manuscript pages. The pages were always photographed at an angle or with heavy blur so nobody could read the actual content. She said the book would be called The Venue Between Us and would be released in 3 months. Julia called the self-publishing company. She spoke to someone in their customer service department. She explained the situation and said the book contained false information about her family. The customer service representative said they don't fact-check memoirs because they're considered personal perspectives. Julia asked if they had any policy about defamation. The representative said she would have someone call Julia back. Nobody ever called back. About a week later, Monica posted that her book had a release date. She said pre-orders would be available soon. She posted the cover design. It was a photo of a white wedding dress hanging in a window with sun coming through. The subtitle was a sister's story of loss, betrayal, and reclaiming her voice. Luke contacted Monica through a mutual friend since she had blocked most of us. He asked her to reconsider publishing the book. Monica sent back a message saying she had every right to tell her story. Luke replied that her story wasn't true. Monica didn't respond after that. The pre-order link went live 2 weeks ago. Monica posted it everywhere. She said all proceeds would go toward helping her heal and move forward. She set the price at $18 for the ebook and $25 for paperback. Lennox and I talked to our lawyer again. The lawyer reviewed the podcast transcript and Monica's social media posts. He said we could potentially sue for defamation if the book contained false statements that damaged our reputation. He said it would be expensive and time-consuming. He also said we would have to prove actual damages, which might be hard since this was mostly within our family. We decided to wait and see what was in the actual book before taking any legal action. The book came out last week. Monica posted multiple times on release day. She said this was the proudest moment of her life. She said she hoped her story would help others who felt voiceless in their families. Lennox ordered a copy immediately. The book arrived 2 days later. It was 130 pages. Lennox read the entire thing in one sitting. He came upstairs after finishing it and said it was worse than he thought. The book used our real first names. It included details about specific family events. Monica wrote about the wedding in extensive detail. She described the venue, the colors, the timeline of the day. She wrote that Lennox had pressured her into giving up the venue by having their mother guilt trip her. She wrote that I had been rude to her throughout the entire wedding planning process. She wrote that I blamed her for intentionally destroying my cake topper when she had barely touched it. The book also included things we hadn't even heard about before. Monica wrote that she had paid for most of the original venue deposit with money she inherited from her grandmother. This was a lie. She and Tyler had split the deposit 50-50 and neither of them used inheritance money. Monica wrote that seeing us use her grandmother's legacy to fund our wedding was especially painful. She also wrote that at the actual wedding, I had made a speech thanking everyone except her. This was also a lie. I didn't make any speech at all. Lennox made a short toast thanking our parents and wedding party. The worst part was the final chapter. Monica wrote that she had been in a mental health crisis after the wedding. She said she had to be hospitalized. She said our family didn't even check on her because we were too busy celebrating. None of this was true. Monica was never hospitalized. We had seen her at a family barbecue about 3 weeks after our wedding. She had seemed completely fine. Lennox called Julia. Julia said Monica's lies about hospitalization were too far. She said they needed to do something. Blake agreed. They decided they would confront Monica together. Julia texted Monica asking to meet for coffee. Monica actually agreed. They met yesterday afternoon at a coffee shop near Monica's apartment. Julia brought a copy of the book with her. She asked Monica to explain why she wrote things that weren't true. Monica said everything in the book was true from her perspective. Julia asked about the hospitalization. Monica said it was a metaphor for her emotional state. Julia said you can't use the word hospitalized as a metaphor in a book that claims to be a true story. Monica said Julia was focusing on the wrong things. She said the book was about her emotional journey. Julia said the book was full of lies about specific events. Monica said Julia had always taken Lennox's side. Julia said there were no sides when one person was making things up. Blake tried to talk. He asked Monica if she understood that what she was doing could have legal consequences. Monica said she had a right to free speech. Blake said free speech doesn't protect defamation. Monica said she wasn't defaming anyone. She said she was sharing her truth. The conversation went in circles. Monica refused to acknowledge that anything in the book was false. She kept saying things like this is my lived experience and nobody can tell me how to feel about my own life. Julia finally said that if Monica didn't take the book down or at least remove our names and the false information, she and Blake were done. Monica asked what that meant. Julia said it meant they wouldn't have a relationship with her anymore. Monica laughed. She said they were proving her point about family being conditional. Julia and Blake left. Since that conversation, Monica has posted twice. The first post said some people would rather protect their image than acknowledge harm they caused. The second post said cutting off family members is sometimes the healthiest choice you can make. Blake and Julia are heartbroken. Julia keeps saying she doesn't understand how Monica became this person. Blake says they tried everything and Monica just wants to be a victim. The book has sold about 30 copies according to the Amazon ranking. Most of the buyers are probably Monica's friends or people who follow her on social media. There are 2 reviews. Both are 5 stars. One says the book was raw and honest. The other says it takes courage to share your truth even when family tries to silence you. We talked to our lawyer again yesterday. He said we could send a cease and desist letter demanding Monica remove the book or change our names. He said the letter alone might scare her into making changes. The letter would cost about $800. Lennox and I are trying to decide if it's worth it. Part of me thinks we should just let Monica have her fantasy world and cut her off completely. Part of me thinks we need to do something to stop her from spreading lies about us. Update 3. This is my final update. Things have reached a conclusion of sorts. After my last update, Lennox and I decided to send the cease and desist letter. Our lawyer drafted it and sent it to Monica by certified mail. The letter demanded that she either remove the book from sale or change all identifying information including our names and specific details about the venue and wedding. Monica received the letter about a week after it was sent. We know because she posted about it on Instagram. She photographed the envelope with certified mail blakings and posted it with a caption about being legally harassed by family members. She said she wouldn't be intimidated into silence. 3 days later, Monica posted that she had consulted with a legal expert who told her she had every right to publish her memoir. We later found out through Luke that Monica's legal expert was her friend's boyfriend who was in his 2nd year of law school. Monica kept the book available for sale. She also started promoting it more actively. She joined several Facebook groups about wedding planning and family estrangement. She would post in these groups about her book and her story. Some people in the groups were sympathetic. Others asked questions that Monica couldn't answer without revealing the holes in her story. About 2 weeks ago, something unexpected happened. One of Lennox's cousins named Jennifer posted in the family group chat. Jennifer lives in another state and doesn't see the family often. She said she had bought Monica's book because she wanted to understand what was happening. Jennifer said after reading the book, she decided to look back at some old family photos and messages. She found a text message thread from 4 years ago when Monica first got engaged to Tyler. In that thread, Monica had sent photos of venue options to several family members asking for opinions. The Cedar House wasn't even in those photos. Monica had been considering completely different venues. Jennifer kept looking. She found an Instagram post from Monica dated about 2 months before her engagement ended. In that post, Monica had mentioned she and Tyler still hadn't found the right venue. This was weeks after Monica claimed in her book that she had already fallen in love with the Cedar House and put down her grandmother's inheritance money as a deposit. Jennifer posted screenshots of these findings in the family group chat. She said it looked like Monica had changed the timeline to make her story more dramatic. Luke replied that this matched what he already knew. He said Monica and Tyler didn't book the Cedar House until about 3 weeks before their engagement ended. They picked it quickly because they were trying to save the relationship and thought having a wedding date would help. Blake forwarded all of Jennifer's findings to Monica along with a message. He said they had proof that she was lying about basic facts. He said she needed to take the book down immediately. Monica replied that Jennifer had the dates wrong. Blake asked how Jennifer could have the dates wrong when the text messages and Instagram posts were timestamped. Monica didn't respond. 2 days after that exchange, Monica posted on Instagram that she was taking a break from social media for her mental health. She said the last few months had been difficult and she needed to focus on herself. She didn't mention the book or any of the family drama. The book stayed available for sale. We checked the Amazon page regularly. Sales seemed to have stalled at around 40 copies. The ranking showed it wasn't being purchased anymore. Then last week, something else happened. Julia got a phone call from Monica's landlord. The landlord said he was sorry to bother her but he had been trying to reach Monica for several days about an overdue rent payment and she wasn't responding. He said Julia was listed as Monica's emergency contact. Julia tried calling Monica. The calls went straight to voicemail. Julia drove to Monica's apartment. Monica answered the door but barely opened it. Julia asked if she was okay. Monica said she was fine and just needed space. Julia asked about the rent. Monica said she had the money and would pay it soon. She closed the door. Julia called Blake. They both agreed something was wrong. Blake called Luke and asked him to try reaching out to Monica. Luke sent Monica a text saying he was worried about her and asking if she needed anything. Monica replied that she was fine and everyone should stop checking on her. Yesterday, Monica's book disappeared from Amazon. Lennox noticed it first. When you click the link that Monica had shared, it now says the product is unavailable. We don't know if Monica took it down herself or if Amazon removed it for some reason. Monica hasn't posted anything explaining what happened to the book. Her Instagram is still inactive. Her last post is still the one about taking a social media break. Julia tried calling Monica again this morning. This time Monica actually answered. She told Julia she was fine and asked everyone to leave her alone. Julia asked about the book. Monica said she decided to take it down to focus on other projects. Julia asked what other projects. Monica said she didn't want to discuss it and ended the call. We don't know what happens next. Monica has effectively cut everyone off. Blake and Julia have decided they're not going to keep trying to reach her. They said they'll be available if she wants to reconnect, but they're not chasing her anymore. Luke saw Monica at a grocery store 3 days ago. He said she saw him and immediately turned around and walked the other direction. He didn't follow her. The book is gone, but copies still exist. 40 people bought it. Some of those people might be Monica's friends who will believe her version of events forever. There's nothing we can do about that. Lennox and I have started looking at houses in a different neighborhood. We haven't told the family yet, but we want more distance from all of this. We're still invited to family gatherings and we go, but Monica's absence hangs over everything. Julia tries to act normal, but you can tell she's waiting for her phone to ring. I don't think Monica will apologize or admit she made anything up. I think she genuinely believes her own version of what happened at this point. The human mind is strange that way. You can convince yourself of anything if you try hard enough. The wedding photos are still on our wall. The cake table is in several of them. You can see the empty spot where the topper should have been. Sometimes I look at those photos and try to remember what that day felt like before everything became about Monica's narrative. It's getting harder to separate the actual memories from all the stories that came after. We're not in contact with Monica anymore. Neither are Blake and Julia or Luke. The extended family doesn't bring her up. Her social media is still frozen on that last post about taking a break. That's where everything stands now. No resolution. No apology. No dramatic final confrontation. Just distance and silence and the knowledge that someone in our family chose to burn everything down over something that existed only in her head. Now let's move to the next story. Story 2. I spent months creating the perfect craft room with my husband, but his sister had a key and would come over while I was working to move everything around. She damaged my pottery projects and brought her own supplies to store in my space. I need to know if I handled this situation correctly because I'm starting to doubt myself. My husband thinks I was right, but his sister is making me feel like I'm the problem here. I'm Sarah, 28F, and my husband Jake, 30M, is a carpenter. We've been married for 3 years and live in a house that Jake renovated himself. About 6 months ago, I decided to turn our spare bedroom into a craft room. I do pottery, painting, and jewelry making as a hobby, and I'd been using the dining table for everything, which was getting messy and inconvenient. Jake was amazing about the whole project. He built custom shelving, installed proper lighting, and even created a ventilation system for my pottery wheel. We spent weeks planning every detail together. I wanted everything organized in a specific way so I could find my supplies easily. Jake understood this completely and helped me set up storage systems that made sense for my workflow. The room was finished about 4 months ago, and it became my sanctuary. I work from home as a freelance graphic designer, so having a dedicated creative space where I could switch between digital and hands-on work was incredible. Everything had its place, and I could actually focus on my projects without constantly cleaning up or searching for materials. Here's where the problem starts. Jake's sister Lisa, 32F, has always been what I'd call pushy. She means well, I think, but she has opinions about everything and isn't shy about sharing them. When Jake and I first got together, she made several comments about how I dressed and what I ate. Jake would usually change the subject or make a joke to deflect, but he never directly told her to stop. Lisa lives about 20 minutes away with her husband and 2 kids. She works part-time at a doctor's office and has been doing crafts longer than I have. She started with scrapbooking when her kids were babies and has since moved into card making, cross-stitch, and some light woodworking. She's actually quite good at what she does. When she first saw my craft room, she seemed impressed. She walked around looking at everything and asked lots of questions about my setup. I was happy to show her around because I was proud of what Jake and I had accomplished. She particularly liked the pottery wheel and asked if I'd teach her someday. But then the visits started happening more frequently. Lisa would drop by when Jake was at work, claiming she was in the neighborhood or had some free time between errands. She has a key to our house because she watched our cat when we went on our honeymoon 2 years ago, and we never thought to ask for it back. At first, her visits seemed innocent enough. She'd come in, we'd chat for a bit, and she'd always end up in the craft room. She'd look through my supplies and ask about different techniques. I didn't mind sharing knowledge, and it was nice to have someone to talk crafts with. But then she started bringing things. The first time, she brought a small basket she thought would look nice on one of my shelves. It didn't match my organizational system at all, but I thanked her and put it somewhere out of the way. Then she brought a lamp that she said would give me better light for detail work. The problem was, Jake had already installed perfect lighting, and this lamp just cluttered up my workspace. I started to notice that during her visits, she would move things around. She'd reorganize my paintbrushes or rearrange my jewelry making supplies. When I'd find things in different places later, she'd say she was just trying to help me be more efficient or that she'd noticed I was having trouble finding things. This wasn't true. My system worked perfectly for me, and I knew exactly where everything was. Having my supplies moved around was actually making me less productive because I'd waste time looking for things that weren't where I'd left them. About 2 months ago, Lisa started bringing her own projects to work on in my craft room. She'd arrive with a bag full of scrapbooking supplies and spread them out on my work table. The first few times, I didn't say anything because I didn't want to seem unwelcoming. But it became a regular thing. She'd work on her projects while I worked on mine, and she'd talk constantly. I couldn't concentrate, and I found myself avoiding my own craft room when I knew she might show up. The situation got worse when she started leaving her supplies in my room. She'd finish working on something, pack up most of her materials, but leave behind items she said I might find useful. My carefully organized space started to fill up with her leftover papers, stickers, and tools that didn't belong to my crafts at all. Last month, she did something that really bothered me. I had been working on a series of ceramic bowls for a local gallery that was considering featuring my work. I had them arranged on a specific shelf to dry properly, with careful spacing between each piece. When I came into the room after one of her visits, she had moved all my bowls to make room for a display of her finished scrapbook pages. She'd pushed my bowls together, and 2 of them had been damaged where they touched while the clay was still soft. When I called her about it, she apologized but said she thought they were finished pieces and that she was just trying to showcase both our work. She offered to help me fix the damaged bowls, which missed the point entirely. I had to start those pieces over, and I lost a week of work. I talked to Jake about the situation that night. He listened to everything and said he'd talked to his sister about respecting my space. But when I asked him what he'd said to her afterward, he just mentioned that he told her to be more careful with my projects. He hadn't addressed the bigger issue of her taking over my craft room. 2 weeks ago, everything came to a head. I was having a particularly stressful day with work deadlines, and I went to my craft room to unwind with some pottery. When I opened the door, Lisa was there rearranging my entire paint station. She'd taken down all my color-organized tubes and was sorting them by brand instead. There were paint tubes everywhere, and she'd also brought in a new storage cart that didn't fit with my setup at all. She looked up when I came in and said she'd noticed my paint organization wasn't very logical and thought she'd fix it for me as a surprise. She said the new cart would give me much more storage space and that I'd thank her once I saw how much better the new system worked. I stood there for a moment, watching her handle my expensive art supplies, and something inside me snapped. I told her to stop what she was doing and leave my craft room immediately. She looked shocked and said she was just trying to help. I repeated that I wanted her to leave, and she started gathering her things with a hurt expression on her face. Before she left, she said that I was being ungrateful and that she'd spent her own time and money trying to make my space better. She said I clearly didn't appreciate having someone who cared enough to help me improve my organization and that maybe she'd been wrong about me being a real crafter. After she left, I called Jake at work and told him what had happened. He sighed and said he'd handle it. When he got home that evening, he said he'd talked to Lisa and that she was upset but understood she'd overstepped. He said she probably wouldn't be coming by as much anymore. But I haven't heard from Lisa at all since then, and Jake mentioned that she'd been complaining to their parents about how I'd treated her. Apparently, she's been telling people that I kicked her out for trying to help and that I'm not the supportive sister-in-law she thought I was. Now I'm second-guessing myself. Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I should have been more direct about my boundaries earlier instead of letting things build up. Jake says I had every right to protect my space and that his sister needed to learn respect, but I can see that this situation is causing tension in his family. The craft room is finally back to the way I had it organized, and I can work peacefully again. But I keep wondering if there was a better way to handle this situation. Lisa clearly thought she was being helpful, even if her methods were completely wrong for me. I changed the locks on our house last week, which felt a bit extreme, but I needed to know that my space would stay the way I arranged it. Jake supported this decision and said it was probably something we should have done earlier anyway. So was I wrong to kick Lisa out of my craft room? Should I have found a gentler way to establish boundaries, or was being direct the only way to get through to her? Update 1: I wanted to update everyone on what happened after my original post about Lisa taking over my craft room. Thank you to everyone who commented and reassured me that I wasn't being unreasonable. Your responses helped me realize that I'd been way too patient with the situation. After I posted, things were quiet for about a week. Lisa didn't come by, and Jake said she hadn't mentioned anything to him about the craft room incident. I started to think maybe the problem had resolved itself and that she'd finally understood the boundaries. Then Jake's mom called me. She said she wanted to have lunch and catch up, which was unusual because we don't typically hang out one-on-one. But I figured it might be nice to spend some time with her, so I agreed to meet her at a restaurant near her house. The lunch started normally enough. We talked about work, the weather, and some family news. But then she brought up Lisa. She said that Lisa had been really hurt by what happened in my craft room and that she felt I'd been unfair to her. According to Jake's mom, Lisa had only been trying to bond with me and share her crafting experience. Jake's mom asked if I'd consider apologizing to Lisa and maybe inviting her over to work on a project together. She said that Lisa had been looking forward to our crafting sessions and felt rejected when I asked her to leave. She also mentioned that Lisa had put a lot of thought into the organizational changes she'd suggested for my room. I tried to explain my side of the situation. I told her about how Lisa had been moving my things around without asking, how she'd damaged my pottery, and how she'd taken over my workspace without considering that I had my own system that worked for me. But Jake's mom seemed to think these were minor issues that could have been solved with better communication. She said that Lisa was a very experienced crafter and that I should have been more open to her suggestions. She pointed out that Lisa had been doing crafts for years before I started and that her organizational ideas came from genuine experience. She also said that families should support each other's hobbies and that Lisa had been excited to have someone to share her passion with. The conversation made me uncomfortable, but I tried to stay polite. I said I'd think about what she'd said, but I also explained that my craft room was important to me as a personal space where I could work without interruption. Jake's mom seemed to understand this, and we moved on to other topics. But when I got home and told Jake about the lunch, he looked concerned. He asked me exactly what his mom had said and whether she'd pressured me to apologize. When I told him about the conversation, he got quiet for a moment and then said there was something he needed to tell me. Apparently, Lisa had been talking to everyone in Jake's family about our situation. But she hadn't been telling them the truth about what had happened. According to Jake, Lisa had been saying that I'd yelled at her and thrown her out of the house for trying to help organize my craft supplies. She'd told people that I'd been rude and hostile from the moment she'd started visiting and that I'd never appreciated any of her contributions to my craft room. Jake said his mom, dad, and younger brother had all heard Lisa's version of events and that they'd been talking about how I might be having adjustment issues with joining the family. Lisa had apparently suggested that I was having trouble accepting help and that I might be feeling threatened by her experience with crafts. This was completely different from what had actually happened. Yes, I'd been firm when I asked her to leave, but I hadn't yelled at her or been hostile. And I certainly hadn't thrown her out of the house. I'd asked her to leave my craft room after she'd reorganized my paint supplies without permission, which seemed like a reasonable response to me. Jake was angry about his sister's lies, and he said he was going to set the record straight with his family. But first, he wanted to talk to Lisa directly and find out why she'd been spreading false information about me. The next day, Jake called Lisa and asked her to come over so they could discuss what had happened. She agreed, probably thinking that he was going to ask me to apologize. When she arrived, Jake sat her down in the living room and told her he knew she'd been misrepresenting the craft room incident to their family. Lisa immediately became defensive. She said she hadn't lied about anything and that she'd only told people how I'd made her feel. She claimed that even though I hadn't technically yelled, my tone had been harsh and unwelcoming. She said the way I'd asked her to leave had made her feel like she wasn't wanted in our house at all. Jake asked her to explain why she'd been reorganizing my craft room without asking permission. Lisa said she'd thought I'd appreciate the help and that she'd noticed my organization system wasn't very efficient. She said she'd been trying to share her knowledge and experience to help me become a better crafter. This is where things got interesting. Jake asked Lisa to be more specific about what she'd been trying to improve in my craft room. As she started describing her changes, it became clear that she'd been trying to set up my space to work better for her own projects, not mine. The paint organization she'd changed was actually better suited for scrapbooking, where you might need to access many different colors quickly, rather than pottery and painting, where I typically work with a more limited palette per project. The storage cart she'd brought was designed for paper crafts, not for the heavier ceramics and paints I use. Jake pointed out these discrepancies to Lisa, and she admitted that she'd been hoping we could work on more projects together in the future. She said she'd thought that if my craft room was set up in a way that accommodated both our crafting styles, we could spend more time bonding over shared projects. But then Jake asked her why she hadn't discussed any of this with me first. Why hadn't she asked if I wanted to collaborate on projects or if I'd be interested in modifying my workspace? Lisa got quiet and finally admitted that she'd been worried I'd say no. She said she'd been excited to have another crafter in the family, but she'd gotten the impression that I preferred to work alone. She thought that if she could just show me how much better things could be with her organizational system and project ideas, I'd naturally want to work with her more often. Jake told Lisa that what she'd done was manipulate the situation instead of communicating honestly. He said that by changing my space without permission and then lying to their family about my reaction, she'd damaged any chance of us developing a genuine friendship around crafting. Lisa started to cry and said she'd never meant for things to get so complicated. She said she just wanted to be included and that she'd felt left out when Jake and I had worked together on setting up the craft room. She'd been hoping that by contributing to the space, she'd become part of our creative partnership. I actually felt bad for her when Jake told me about this conversation. It was clear that Lisa had been feeling excluded and had handled her feelings in completely the wrong way. But I also realized that her behavior had been more calculated than I'd originally thought. She hadn't just been trying to help, she'd been trying to establish a permanent presence in my craft room. Jake told Lisa that she needed to apologize to me for lying to their family and for reorganizing my space without permission. He also said that if she wanted to work on crafts together in the future, she needed to ask me directly instead of trying to manipulate the situation. Lisa agreed to apologize, but she asked if she could do it in writing because she was embarrassed about how things had turned out. Jake said that was fine, but that she also needed to correct the false information she'd given to their parents and brother. 2 days later, I received a long text message from Lisa. She apologized for moving my craft supplies around and for not asking permission before making changes to my room. She also admitted that she'd been unfair in how she described our conflict to Jake's family and said she'd talked to them about what had really happened. But the apology felt incomplete to me. She focused on how sorry she was that I'd been upset, rather than acknowledging that her actions had been wrong regardless of my reaction. She also suggested that maybe we could start fresh and work on a small project together to rebuild our relationship. I showed the text to Jake, and he agreed that it wasn't really taking full responsibility. He said he'd talk to Lisa again if I wanted him to, but I decided to let it go for now. I was more interested in seeing whether she'd actually correct the false information she'd spread to his family. That's where things stand now. I haven't heard from Jake's parents or brother since my lunch with his mom, so I don't know if Lisa has talked to them yet. Jake says his family relationships feel a bit tense right now, but he's confident that things will settle down once everyone knows the truth. I'm still using my craft room peacefully, and I'm glad I stood up for my boundaries. But I'm also sad that the situation got so complicated when it could have been resolved with honest communication from the beginning. Update 2. Another update on the Lisa craft room situation. Things have taken some unexpected turns, and I wanted to share what's been happening. After my last update, Lisa did talk to Jake's family about what had really happened in my craft room. Jake's mom called me a few days later to apologize for the lunch conversation where she'd pressured me to make up with Lisa. She said she hadn't realized the full extent of what Lisa had been doing in my craft room and that she understood why I'd been upset. Jake's dad and brother also reached out to apologize for believing Lisa's version of events without hearing my side. The family seemed to be getting back to normal, and I thought the drama was finally over. But about 3 weeks ago, Jake came home from work with a strange expression on his face. He said his coworker had mentioned seeing Lisa at the craft store downtown, and she'd apparently been telling people there that she was helping to organize craft classes in our home. According to the coworker, Lisa had been asking about bulk supplies for group projects and had mentioned something about converting our spare bedroom into a community craft space. This was completely untrue. We'd never discussed having craft classes in our house, and Lisa definitely wasn't involved in organizing anything like that. Jake and I were both confused about why she'd be spreading this information, so he decided to call her and ask what was going on. When Jake called Lisa, she acted like she didn't know what he was talking about at first. But when he pressed her about the craft store conversation, she admitted that she'd been thinking about some ideas for bringing crafters together in the community. She said she'd mentioned our house as a possible location because we had such a nice setup, but she claimed she hadn't committed to anything definite. Jake told her that she couldn't use our house for craft classes without discussing it with us first, and he asked her to stop telling people that she was organizing anything in our home. Lisa agreed, but she seemed disappointed that we weren't interested in her community craft idea. I thought that would be the end of it, but then something weird happened. Last week, I was working in my craft room when I heard a car pull into our driveway. I looked out the window and saw a woman I didn't recognize getting out of a sedan with a bag of craft supplies. She came to the front door and knocked. When I answered, she introduced herself as Jennifer and said she was there for the pottery class. She said Lisa had given her our address and told her that classes started at 2 o'clock on Wednesdays. I had to explain to this poor woman that there were no pottery classes at our house and that Lisa had given her incorrect information. Jennifer looked confused and showed me a text message thread with Lisa where they discussed the classes and the address. In the messages, Lisa had described my craft room setup and had even mentioned that I was an experienced potter who would be teaching the class. Jennifer was understanding about the mix-up, but she was obviously disappointed. She'd arranged her work schedule to attend the class and had been looking forward to learning pottery. I felt terrible for her and ended up giving her the contact information for a real pottery studio across town that offers beginner classes. After Jennifer left, I immediately called Jake at work and told him what had happened. He was furious. He called Lisa right away and asked her to explain why she'd been scheduling pottery classes in our house without our knowledge or permission. Lisa's explanation was that she'd been trying to surprise me with a way to monetize my pottery skills. She said she'd noticed that I'd been working on pieces for the local gallery and thought I might be interested in teaching as a way to earn extra income. She'd apparently been talking to people at the craft store about gauging interest in pottery classes, and when several people expressed enthusiasm, she'd decided to set up a trial class to see how it went. She claimed she'd been planning to talk to me about it before the actual class happened, but she'd wanted to have everything organized first so she could present it as a complete opportunity. She said she'd thought I'd be excited about the chance to share my pottery knowledge and make some money at the same time. Jake pointed out that Lisa had made commitments to people without having any authority to do so, and that she'd used our home address without our permission. He told her she needed to contact everyone she'd promised classes to and explain that the classes weren't actually happening. Lisa got defensive and said she'd been trying to do something nice for me and that she didn't understand why we were always so negative about her ideas. She said that other families would be grateful to have someone thinking creatively about income opportunities, and that maybe we were too closed-minded to appreciate her entrepreneurial thinking. This attitude really bothered Jake. He told Lisa that her pattern of making decisions about our house and my craft room without consulting us had to stop completely. He said that if she couldn't respect our boundaries, she wouldn't be welcome to visit our house anymore. Lisa started crying and said that she felt like we were pushing her out of the family. She said she'd only been trying to help and that she didn't understand why everything she did was wrong. Jake told her that the problem wasn't her desire to help, but her method of making decisions for us without including us in the process. After Jake hung up with Lisa, we talked about how to handle the situation going forward. We realized that Lisa had been treating my craft room and our house like they were partially hers to manage, and that she'd been making plans involving our property without any regard for our privacy or autonomy. Jake decided to talk to his parents about Lisa's behavior pattern. When he explained the pottery class situation to them, they were shocked. Jake's mom said she'd had no idea that Lisa had been making these kinds of commitments involving our house, and she agreed that Lisa's behavior was inappropriate. Jake's dad suggested that the family have a group conversation with Lisa about boundaries and respect. He said that Lisa might not realize how her actions were affecting us, and that a family discussion might help her understand the impact of her behavior. But Jake wasn't sure that Lisa would be receptive to a group conversation. He pointed out that she'd been defensive and tearful in their phone call, and that she seemed to view herself as a victim in the situation rather than acknowledging her role in creating the problems. We decided to wait and see if Lisa would follow through on contacting the people she'd promised pottery classes to. Jake told her she had until the end of the week to clean up the mess she'd created, or he'd start calling people himself to explain that the classes weren't authorized. It's been 4 days since that conversation, and we haven't heard anything from Lisa about whether she's contacted the people who were expecting pottery classes. Jake's planning to call her tomorrow to check in, and if she hasn't handled the situation, he's going to start making calls himself. I've been thinking about whether there's any way to salvage a relationship with Lisa, but I'm starting to realize that her behavior pattern might be more deeply ingrained than I originally thought. She seems to have trouble understanding that other people's homes and projects aren't hers to manage, even when the boundaries are clearly explained to her. The craft room is still my peaceful sanctuary, and I'm grateful that Jake has been so supportive throughout this whole situation. But I'm also sad that what started as a simple boundary issue has turned into such a complicated family drama. I'll update again once we know how Lisa handles the pottery class situation and whether Jake's family conversation idea moves forward. Update 3: Final update on the Lisa craft room saga. This situation has come to a conclusion, though not the one I was hoping for. After my last update, Jake called Lisa to check whether she'd contacted the people who were expecting pottery classes at our house. She hadn't done it. She told Jake she'd been too embarrassed to call them and ask him to handle it instead since he was the one who was making such a big deal about the situation. Jake spent an entire evening calling people and explaining that there had been a misunderstanding about pottery classes. Most people were understanding, but a few were annoyed because they'd rearranged their schedules or made childcare arrangements to attend. One woman had even bought clay and tools specifically for the class. Lisa's refusal to clean up her own mess was the final straw for Jake. He told his parents that he was done trying to work things out with his sister and that she wouldn't be welcome at our house anymore. He said that her pattern of creating problems and then expecting other people to fix them was something he couldn't tolerate anymore. Jake's parents tried to convince him to give Lisa another chance. They said she was going through a difficult time and that her behavior might improve if she had more support from the family. But Jake pointed out that Lisa had been given multiple chances to respect our boundaries and had chosen to ignore them each time. About 2 weeks ago, Lisa showed up at our house unannounced. Jake was at work, and I was in my craft room working on a commission piece when I heard knocking at the front door. When I looked through the peephole, I saw Lisa standing there with several bags and what looked like craft supplies. I didn't answer the door. After about 5 minutes of knocking, Lisa walked around to the back of the house and tried the back door. When that was locked too, she sat down on our back porch and started unpacking her bags. I could see through the window that she'd brought scrapbooking supplies and what looked like materials for setting up a workspace. I called Jake at work and told him what was happening. He left his job site immediately and came home. When he arrived, Lisa was still on the back porch with her supplies spread out around her. She'd apparently been planning to work on projects outside until someone came home and let her in. Jake asked Lisa what she was doing at our house. She said she'd been thinking about our conversation regarding the pottery classes and had realized that maybe she'd been going about things the wrong way. She said she'd brought her own supplies so she could work on projects without touching anything in my craft room, and she'd thought we could craft together in a way that respected my boundaries. Jake told Lisa that she couldn't just show up at our house without being invited and that sitting on our porch with craft supplies wasn't respecting our boundaries. He asked her to pack up her things and leave. Lisa started crying and said that she felt like Jake was choosing me over his own family. She said that before Jake got married, they'd been close, and that she'd never had problems with any of his previous girlfriends. She accused me of turning Jake against her and said that I was trying to isolate him from his family. This was completely unfair. Jake's relationship with his sister had changed because of her behavior, not because of any influence from me. I'd actually encouraged Jake to try to work things out with Lisa multiple times, even when her actions were affecting me directly. Jake told Lisa that her behavior was the problem, not me. He listed all the things she'd done: reorganizing my craft room without permission, lying to their family about what had happened, scheduling pottery classes in our house without asking, and now showing up uninvited with craft supplies. He said that each of these actions showed a pattern of not respecting other people's boundaries or property. Lisa packed up her supplies and left, but not before telling Jake that he'd regret choosing his wife over his sister. She said that marriages don't always last, but family is forever, and that someday he'd realize what he'd given up. After Lisa left, Jake called his parents and told them what had happened. His mom said she'd talked to Lisa about her behavior, but she also asked Jake to consider that Lisa might be struggling with mental health issues and that cutting her off completely might not be the best approach. Jake said he wasn't cutting Lisa off forever, but that he needed to see consistent changes in her behavior before he'd be comfortable having her at our house again. He said that Lisa could still be part of family gatherings at his parents' house, but that our home was off limits until she learned to respect boundaries. Jake's parents accepted this compromise, though they weren't happy about it. Jake's mom said she hoped we'd reconsider eventually, and Jake's dad said he understood why we needed space from Lisa but that he hoped the family could heal from this situation. It's been 2 weeks since Lisa's last visit, and we haven't heard from her since. Jake's parents have mentioned her a few times in phone calls, but they haven't pressured us to reconcile with her. Jake's brother has been supportive of our decision and has said that he'd noticed Lisa's boundary issues in other situations as well. My craft room remains my peaceful workspace, and I'm finally able to use it without worrying about unwanted interruptions or reorganization. Jake installed a security system last week, partially because of the Lisa situation but also because we'd been meaning to upgrade our home security anyway. I do feel sad about how things turned out with Lisa. I think she genuinely wanted to connect with me through crafting, but her approach was so controlling and disrespectful that it destroyed any chance of building a real friendship. I wish she'd been able to understand that relationships can't be forced through manipulation and boundary violations. Jake has been amazing throughout this entire situation. He consistently supported me while also trying to maintain his family relationships, and he never made me feel like I was being unreasonable for wanting to protect my personal space. I know it wasn't easy for him to set firm boundaries with his sister, but he recognized that Lisa's behavior was affecting our marriage and our home. The craft room project that started all of this has been incredibly successful. I've sold several pieces through the local gallery, and I've been able to take on more commission work because I have a dedicated space where I can focus. Sometimes I think about how different things might have been if Lisa had simply asked to learn pottery or suggested we work on a project together instead of trying to take over my space. But that's not what happened, and I've learned that some people can't or won't respect boundaries no matter how clearly they're communicated. Lisa had multiple opportunities to change her approach, and she chose to escalate the situation instead of listening to our concerns. I hope Lisa eventually learns to respect other people's boundaries and property, both for her own sake and for her relationships with the rest of Jake's family. But that's not something I can control or fix. All I can do is protect my own space and peace of mind, which is exactly what I've done. The craft room is mine again, and that's how it's staying.